Welcome back to Roadtrip Revivals. This is the TVR S3 1990 that I bought in the UK a few weeks ago on road trip back to France. In this video we're going to have a good look over it, top, bottom, underneath, to find out everything that is wrong with this cheap TVR, and it might give you some idea, if you buy a cheap TVR, what sort of condition it might be in. Let's jump straight into having a look underneath and see what condition the chassis is in. Right, so Trevor's up on the scissor lift, and I think just for a change we'll start at the back today. First thing I noticed, looking here where a bit of the paint's been knocked off, this car has been repainted and it used to be a lighter shade of green, which you see there. It's had a little knock there, but nothing too bad. Yeah, so I didn't realise it wasn't the original colour, but there you go. I think the colour it is now is nicer. It's more of a pearlescent type of green. These tyres, when I bought it, I wasn't sure how old they are, but the date code is on the inside. They're 2006, so they're fit for the bin as well, like the front ones. No great surprise there. All of the CV joints are a little bit leaky. Actually, if you've got a car with this type of bolt-on axle, it's always worth now and again just going around and checking the bolts are tight. And all of these took like an eighth turn, so they do tend to work loose and they need to be done up nice and snug. So there's my tip for those. Corrosion-wise, it's not bad at all. Someone's been over it with a pot of red hammerite at some point. You can't see the outriggers that well on camera, but it all needs the sort of cleaning off and painting over again, but not bad at all. I'm guessing, is that a diff from a Sierra? It looks like it to me. One other thing I noticed, see the two pipes as they come out the back here, and the left one has got that kink in it. Is that to change the length, just so it sounds a bit better? The fuel tank looks good, not too worried about that. The pipe, however, coming from the bottom that comes along here up to the fuel pump is quite perished. And also, you see the pipe there where it joins into that metal piece and then goes at 90 degrees off to the pump on the left. Is that a pre-filter for the pump? I can't imagine what else it would be. That prop shaft UJ looks all right. You can't see the front one because the exhaust is in the way, so that'll get checked later. Look here already at the amount of oil that's blown back onto the exhaust. No wonder it stinks when you're driving it. And then you see here loads more oil all dripping down from, I'm guessing, from the rear main. It's definitely engine oil anyway, and it drips off the bottom of the bell housing. This has been parked here since yesterday afternoon and it's amassed quite a puddle on the floor already. That, of course, is a Ford T9 gearbox. That is working perfectly, so nothing to do there, perhaps just an oil change for it. I'm hoping the gearbox will drop out and allow access for the rear main. The rear mount for the gearbox you can't really see, but that piece there does unbolt. Hopefully then the gearbox could shift back a little bit and the front would drop down and it would come out, I hope. So we'll see for that, I'll let you know. Look at the diddy short little oil filter it has. It can't have a bigger one because there isn't enough space before it hits the chassis. But that would definitely be worth changing very regularly as it's so small. Bit of coolant on this hose here, leaking from further up, so that needs looking at. But again, the chassis here and the outriggers, everything looks good. Been quite lucky there, I think. You see all the silicone hoses everywhere. The front springs, I think, need replacing. It looks a bit droopy on the front, and I think they're a bit tired. I think the front hubs on these are all Sierra, aren't they? Nothing special on the brakes, just a single piston caliper. I'm guessing that's all Sierra as well. But the discs are in good order. Up here you can see, well, you can't see it very well, but that device is the high lift bonnet kit, and it appears just to change the pivot point of where the bonnet hinges on the front to allow it to open a bit higher. This one does need some adjustment. The bonnet doesn't quite sit as it should. There's our ancient tyres from 2002. The engine's not very leaky at the front. It's all a bit flaky, the paint and everything, but doesn't look too bad. There you see our downpipes. That's probably the leaky bit there, that one maybe, where the downpipe joins the manifold pipe. Those need attention. Look at the oil dripping on the exhaust. Goodness. Got some roll bars here. Nice beefy tubular wishbones. Of course it's a double wishbone setup as well. So yeah, the other thing I noticed about the car is it's very short wheelbase, because on my lift that wheel is touching the ramp, and it's touching the ramp back there as well. I haven't looked at the rear brakes, but when I do the tyres I'll pop the drums off and check they're all good. So yeah, that's it for underneath. If you guys have got any tips or part numbers for any of the bits I need, I'll be most grateful. Oh, one other thing I forgot to show you. I think we'll need a new master cylinder, because the bottom of the servo is all damp. Yeah, it's clearly losing some fluid out the back of the master cylinder, I think. So that will be another thing to change. So one other thing I noticed on the drive home is that when you come on and off the power, it feels like there's a fair bit of slack in the transmission. And at first I thought we probably got a bad diff mount, and that would allow the diff to rock back and forward when you come on and off the power. But they look okay. I think what it is actually is that all the CV joints are worn. And if I just rock the prop shaft, you can see here that the outer part of the CV joint turns and the drive shaft hardly moves. And then if you look up in there, you can see all the grease has escaped from the joint. And so all four joints actually have some wear in, and that would account for that slack I feel in the transmission. And again, these are leaky here, the grease coming out. So it needs a set of 4 joints on both of the drive shafts, but that is quite a simple job actually, and they're not too expensive. Just been having a good poke around under the bonnet and don't see anything much to be concerned about. Someone's put on a MSD ignition coil at some stage. I don't suppose that's original, but that's a good quality coil. The plugs and leads all look quite fresh. They've been done not too long ago. It's all just a bit grimy really, but nothing that I'm worried about. The inlet pipes here from the airflow meters are in good condition. They need to be good, because if they leak you'd get a false reading from the airflow sensor. There's our radiator that's been refreshed, and it's got 2 big fans on it, so that shouldn't be giving us any issues. There's that belt that was touching the water hose here, and I tied a piece of string on it, but actually the belt must have rubbed on that and it snapped the string. So it needs a slightly longer hose here so that it could be routed up a bit higher and keep out the way of this belt. Although the belt, there is a bit of clearance there now, but these belts, they'll tend to do that when they're running. At some point someone's put a idle air control valve on here. That looks a bit fresher. I don't believe these were stainless from new, so that's been upgraded. All the hoses are silicone. That one that's rubbed through actually is black and all the others are blue, so I'm guessing someone at some stage had an issue with the blue one rubbing through, perhaps. The VIN on these is on TVR's VIN plate here, and also on the driver's side of the chassis under the exhaust manifold. There's a VIN there. Don't do what I do, check it before you buy the car. It's amazing how many people go and buy a car and they never even take a glance at the VIN. So do that, people. Ringed cars are not as common as they used to be, but there are still a few out there. We've got a mechanical control for the fan here, That thin wire piece you see has a sensor, and it goes inside where the coolant pipes join there, and then you can adjust when your fan comes on and off. The clutch fluid is quite low, and I think when I'm having the gearbox out to do the rear main seal, I'll stick a new slave cylinder on it. I suspect that might be a bit leaky. I would like to have the injectors out and test them, but it's a bit of a job because you've got to split the manifold. I'd need to get some new seals for them, so at some point maybe we'll do that. What I'm going to do next is give it a compression test, and I'm going to do it the slightly lazy way. We're going to do a relative compression test with an oscilloscope. So I'll get that set up and show you how it works. Right, the engine is warmed up, so we're going to do this relative compression test again. As before, we've got the wire taken off the coil, so there's no chance it will fire. We won't set the immobiliser, so it won't add any fuel. The fuel pump won't run, that is to say. Hold the throttle wide open, here we go. I forgot to set it for 6 cylinders. Let's try that again. Oh, okay. No, it still works. It interprets the data for 6 cylinders. So we've got 2 that are slightly down, 93 is the lowest, 96 is the other one. So yeah, I'm happy with that. I think that engine is perfectly healthy. We could just take one plug out and take a compression reading on that just to be sure. And if that shows a good reading, then we know that all 6 of them are good and healthy. Obviously, it is worth doing a manual check, at least just on one cylinder, because, well, if all the cylinders were low, it would still give you those sort of 90 to 100% readings, although that is quite unlikely. Just looking at the spark plug here, that one looks nice and healthy, good mixture, no oil burning going on. So I've picked a cylinder at random just to put the pressure gauge on. And we'll do the same test again. Throttle wide open. Blimey, very healthy. So yeah, I've got nearly 190 psi on that cylinder. That's good, that's a relief. Healthy engine. One thing I would do on this is, although the 2.9 has hydraulic tappets, which was an upgrade over the 2.8 Cologne, they do still have an adjustment, that is to adjust the preload on it. So it would be worth just going around and checking the preload on all those hydraulic lifters. If you saw the collection video, you'll remember I had my doubts about whether the alternator was working well. And I've just been doing some tests here. And you'll notice on the gauge, it's sort of not too convincingly hovering below the 13. But when I put a voltmeter on the battery here, we've got 14.3 volts, which is actually healthy. But that's only half the story, so I've got the oscilloscope out again. And we can do what's called an alternator ripple test. An alternator naturally would put out AC, but it has diodes to convert it to DC. And what you see there is just the faint ripple of the AC. And if you've got a bad diode or a bad regulator, you'll see some dips or you'll see some flat spots in the current there. But actually this one all looks good. So from that I conclude probably just the gauge is a little bit lazy, and all the voltage feed to it isn't as, what should we say, as good as it should be basically. That said, I did just give the wires a wiggle here, and the exciter wire on the terminal had some tape, gave it a tug while it felt loose and it fell right out, so that certainly wasn't helping matters. We'll put a new terminal on there. Cosmetically not too bad. The worst thing is this big star crack on the bonnet. I reckon the bonnet collided with the radiator mount at some point and it's pushed it from the other side and created that. Otherwise, there's sort of, the bonnet's been repainted, well the whole car's been repainted as we know, and there's a fair bit of micro blistering. These front indicator lights, apparently, I'm told, are unobtainium, and these ones are fairly cracked and not very nice. So if someone's got a solution of something that fits in this hole and tidies that up, I'd like to know, please. I do like the Oz wheels they put on these. I would have thought that they were a staggered fitment, or I would have imagined, but they're not. Seems the wheels are all 7" by 15, and the tyres are all 205 60/15s. But yeah, the wheels are actually in really nice condition. They'll just need a quick polish up, and obviously I'm changing the tyres anyway. There's a few little dings and cracks you can't see because the rain's on it now, but there's a little crack there, there's a crack there, there's a crack there. This was probably an old boy that reversed into things once in a while, who knows. Another little chip on the corner there. Bit of a split there. I don't know. I wonder if it would be a sensible idea to wrap this car at some stage, because fiberglass is a bit tricky to paint. That might be a better solution, I don't know. The windscreen's okay, and that's a relief, because these are perhaps not the easiest things to get hold of. Tiny bit of delamination on the edge, but that's nothing to worry about. This door is really annoying. Kind of, oh, it does shut now, but the hinge is really worn. That's no doubt a bit of a fiddle to get at in the footwell there, but that will need looking at some point. The interior is all nice. The driver's seat is a bit worn. Perhaps we can get some colouring stuff and recolour in the cracks to make it look a bit nicer. The vinyl's all okay. The vinyl around the centre console will probably clean up. That's gotten a bit grubby from where people have had their arms resting on it. Otherwise, the electric windows, everything all works in there. The bonnet is very far out of alignment. It seems to me this gap here is too tight. This gap here is too big. And also this gap is too tight. So it seems like it's slightly too high and slightly too far back. But we have that high lift hinge kit, and that seems to have a fair bit of adjustment on it. Hopefully we can jiggle it around and get it fitting a bit better. Can someone tell me if these mirrors, I don't think are original, are they? This one particularly, if you look at where it is in relation to the door, you can see one tiny corner of it when you're driving. That is absolutely useless. So if that is an original mirror, tell me where I can get something a bit better that you can actually use as a mirror. Would be handy. So I expect next time you see this car, it will be to pull out the gearbox. I'll put in a new clutch slave cylinder, maybe change the clutch. We'll see what it looks like. If it looks like it's got plenty of life left in it, we'll probably leave it. The gearbox mount is a bit soft, so we'll be changing that as well. Obviously, changing that rear main seal is the main priority. And then a new set of tyres. We'll try and adjust the bonnet, give it a good service, fix the door hinge, fix a few other little odds and sods. That'll probably do it for now. At some point in the future, we'll carry on do some other work, things like those rear CV joints, cleaning up and repainting the chassis in places, and yeah, just other little things as they crop up. So that's it for this one, guys. Comment down below if you think this car was worth buying. If you missed the road trip video, I'll put a link in the description. See you next time.